Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing today? Happy Friday. Glad to be here. My name is Maya Hu Chen, and we live in interesting times. We live in exciting times, especially if you're in Asia. Think about this. Asia has the fastest growing economy in recent decades in the world. And Asia has over 4.4 billion people, which is 60% of the world population in 49 different states. Asia is huge. Asia is diverse. Asia is exciting. And also, we're very complicated. Right? And at the heart of this economic success is Asia business leadership. All the leaders, business entrepreneurs, and managers, they have sustained and created this economic miracle. So the trends are clear. It's time. It's time now for us to create and develop sustainable leadership pipeline that will cultivate global leaders in Asia, that they will continue to bring our success to the next century. And then we need leaders who have broad perspectives and strong business acumen. So how do we do that? I'd like to start by sharing with you 5 global leadership competencies. And that's based on my book, Global Leadership, The Next Generation. Now, we have done a multi-year research, interview hundreds of leaders around the world in different industries in 6 continents. And we'll ask those global leaders, what are some of the most important characteristics or competencies that you need to have in order to be effective, to become a global leader? So we have identified 5 top competencies. Number 1, thinking globally. Number 2, appreciating cultural diversity. Number 3, developing technological savvy. Number 4, building partnerships. Number 5, sharing leadership. And many qualities of effective leadership, such as communicating a shared vision, demonstrating integrity, focusing on results, and make sure that customers are satisfied, those are always going to be important. And they would always be there. But that's not enough. If you want to be successful working globally, you have to have those additional 5 competencies. So let's talk about Asia leadership. Now, we have done a lot of things well. In fact, Asian leaders are doing a lot of things right. So I'd like to first talk about their strengths. Then we also like to talk about what are some of the development areas that Asian leaders should look into that will help them get to where they want to be. So let's start with the core strength of Asian leadership. Asian leaders are trustworthy. They have high integrity. They're absolutely the best in terms of their technical skills. And they're really good at execution. They take the goal, and they know how to get there. They're result-oriented, and they're very much focusing on getting the job done. They're also very good at perseverance. They don't give up. They work hard, and they keep going at it, and they're determined, and they're persistent. They're also very good with group orientation. They're very good at working with teams. Okay? And Asian leaders tend to put the group, the organization's well-being, and overall success ahead of individual gains. They build strong local relationships and networks. They build long-term relationships with their customers, with their coworkers, and with their business partners. And they take time to cultivate those relationships. And they're very entrepreneurial. They spend a lot of time thinking about how can we grow the business and how can we make sure that we're profitable. And finally, they're great with customers. They build long-term relationship with their customers and build that loyalty with their customers. So those are all the strengths that Asian leaders have. And we want to keep doing that. So now, what are some of the things that we probably need to also do more of as Asian leaders? So that will take us to the next level, and then we'll be more ready for the global role. Let's take a look at some of the potential development areas. And again, I wanted to emphasize that those are based on the research, and those are the trends. But we're not saying that all Asian leaders have those development areas. But we're seeing that many of them do. So let's take a look at what are some of the potential areas that leaders in Asia can really pay attention to. Number one, global and strategic thinking. Now, I have worked with leaders around the world, thousands of them, in multinational organizations, in local organizations, and in various industries and different levels. And what I have seen is that they're so good with technical skills, and they know how to execute. They know how to deliver results. They know how to reach goals. But then when you ask them to step back and say, okay, let's define the what, not the how. You know the how. Let's figure out the what. They have a hard time with that. Okay, and then so as a global leader, you must be more of a thinker and planner, less of a doer. Secondly, building partnership. Now we talk about Asian leaders are really good at building local partnership and networks. But how do you do when it comes to building partnership across Asia and globally? Not so good. Okay. And number three is leadership style shift. So let's talk about this topic in terms of Asian leadership. Now, according to research, that Asian leadership tend to resemble parentalistic leadership. So what does that mean? It's that Asian leaders very often, especially the traditional leadership style, tend to be more like a parent. So as a leader, you're more like a father and mother to your employees. So some of the key characteristics, there are three of them. Number one is that you set the moral standards. So as a leader, you would tell your employee that what is right, what's wrong. Just like a parent, you tell your kids, you don't lie, you don't cheat, be honest, tell me the truth, yeah, be good, right? So you set the moral standard. And they're also autocratic. They tend to be very authoritative. And Asian leaders, they make a lot of decisions and they give orders. And they expect their employee to follow them. And there's another characteristic as a parent, is that you love your children, right? So Asian leaders, they care. And they're very kind to their employees. Okay, so there's very, very much a benevolent leader. So those are the key characteristics of traditional Asian leadership. Now, how it works really well locally, in the local context. And it can be really effective. But when it comes to working globally, it can create some issues. First of all, let's think about if you're working with people, you have a boss that's sitting in Chicago, sitting in Sydney, Australia, right? And then you need to communicate with them. And if you're using the same style, that may not work very well. Well, Asian culture also has a very strong characteristic in terms of hierarchy. We respect hierarchy. We respect authority. We respect titles. We respect seniority. So then if our boss is wrong, we will never challenge them or tell them, you're wrong, that's a bad idea. Instead, we say, okay, boss, what do you want? And I'll get it done. So very rarely, we would challenge up, and it's our cultural value that this is something that we deeply rooted. We respect that authority. Even if we disagree, we either remain silent, or we would think of it and perhaps have a private discussion, but we really rarely challenge up. And that can be perceived negatively when it comes to working across cultures. That when you don't have an opinion or you don't voice your disagreement, and can be perceived as you are indecisive, you're weak, you don't know what you're talking about, and perhaps even lack of leadership capability. And that's not fair. And secondly is the influencing across cultures and functions. Okay. Now, if you are working in global projects, it's very important to have the influencing skill because you are not their boss. Typically, when we work with cross-functional projects or global projects, we have to be able to collaborate with our colleagues. And we're not their boss. We don't have the authority to tell them what to do. And the Asian leaders has a tendency to really are very comfortable with the position power. But then when it comes to influencing across cultures and functions, that it become quite challenging for them. And the last point is about developing people and managing teams globally. Developing people in Asian culture is still a very new concept. Okay, as a leader, I need to develop my people, I need to grow them. I don't tell them what to do, I have to coach them. What is that about? So it's a relatively new concept, and it's also something that it's expected of leaders. So I want to show you interesting research that to show that in different culture, there are different expectations for managers. In this research, they have studied 17 different countries. If you look at the bottom of the chart, and those countries are mostly Western countries, except Japan is in there. That's the only Asian country. They asked the question of people from those countries, is it important for a manager to have the precise answers to most of the questions that subordinates may have about their work? In other words, as a manager, do you have to know it all? Do you have to be right all the time? Do you have to have the answer always? And take a look at what do you notice? What do you notice about this chart? You see there is the yellow part of the chart, and there's the blue part, right? So what do you notice? Which country is actually the highest when it comes to, yes, manager has to know it all? Spain, yeah, Spain. And then we also have Italy, Portugal, and Japan is one of them, okay? Where do you think is Asia located? When we talk about, perhaps let's talk about where's China? Is it more in the yellow or more in the blue? Definitely more yellow, right? Definitely the yellow side. How about India? Yeah? It's also in the yellow part, okay? And how about Singapore? It's also yellow, right? Okay, so now let's take a look at the blue part. The blue part are the countries that the expectation for the manager is that you don't have to know everything. In fact, if you pretend you know everything, you lose credibility. You need to ask your employee for input. You need to ask for feedback. You need to listen to them, and you need to engage them. Okay, so and this is particularly interesting, I think, for Asian leaders to reflect upon, is that, if I'm working with countries like Sweden, South Africa, USA, Netherlands, Denmark, Canada, UK, Australia, Germany, Switzerland, Belgium. If I work with people in those countries, what do I have to do to really work well with them? So establish my leadership credibility. I can't act like a parent to them. They're going to look at me and say, who do you think you are? Right? So this is what we're talking about when it comes to working across cultures. You have to be aware of the people you're working with and the people you're leading, and consciously make that shift. So now, let's talk about personal development strategy. I've worked with leaders around the world for the last 20 plus years. And I have noticed that the most effective leaders, the most successful leaders, they develop themselves first. They don't wait around for somebody else to develop them. I'm waiting for my HR leader to develop me. I'm waiting for my manager to develop me. I'm waiting for somebody else, somebody to help me. No. They help themselves. They look at their skill set, and they look at their goal, and they think about, what do I need to do to help myself, to learn, to grow? So they develop themselves first, and they're proactive about it. Okay, so when we think about personal development strategy, first of all, empower leaders, and leaders need to empower themselves to grow and become a true global leader. So at the heart of this, so I'm going to give you 3 strategies for personal development, and I will also give you three strategies for organizational strategy, that how can you develop those talents. But let's talk about the personal strategies first, but at the heart of this is growth mindset. What is growth mindset? Can you take a guess? What does that look like? Talk to me. Talk to me. What is the growth mindset? What do you think? Growth mindset, how do you know somebody has a growth mindset? Yes?
Being willing to take risks and make mistakes to continue developing and improving.
That was a perfect answer. Can you repeat that again? I love that. Please.
Being willing to take risks to
Yeah.
continue growing and improving.
Yes, be willing to take risks to grow and then improve, right? And then so somebody is willing to take risks, that means that you're not always going to be successful. You can make mistakes, you can fail, but you take that as feedback, as a learning opportunity, and they say, okay, this is not working, I'm going to try something else. So to be willing to have this courage to take the risk, and then take the feedback, open to feedback. And they ask questions, they're curious, and they embrace challenges. So those are all the things that demonstrate a leader has a growth mindset. Okay. So now, it is so critical for a leader to have that kind of mindset, and that everything is possible. Okay, so let's take a look at those 3 different personal development strategies. Number 1, it's global and strategic thinking. So let's take a look at this picture. There is a Chinese proverb. Can somebody guess what it says? Yeah, there is a frog. Does you see the green frog? The cute little frog? He lives on the bottom of this well. It's the well. He lives on the bottom, right? And that's his world. So when he looks up, what does he see? What does he see? Say it again. He sees blue sky, right? He sees blue sky. He sees the white clouds. He sees the flowers, but he thinks, wow, that's the world. It's this big, right? And he looks around in his environment. What does he see? He looks around. What does he see? The walls, right? The walls in the wall, in the well. So when he looks around and he sees that's the world, and here's the wall, and that's the world. If you continue to live on the bottom of the well, that's all you can see, right? So as a leader, or you aspire to be a global leader, ask yourself, where am I living, right? If I'm always in the weeds, always on the bottom of the well, that's the world. That's very, very limited. So what do I have to do? Get out of the well. Jump out of the well. Jump out of the well. And don't just stop there. Think about, how can I climb the mountain? Let's go up higher so we can see much farther. We have a 360-degree point of view. And so we can see if there's some dark clouds coming in. I got to bring the umbrella because it's going to be raining this afternoon, right? And if I see there's some lions and tigers over there, don't go that direction, it's dangerous. And I see some green lakes and trees over there, that's an oasis. So maybe that's where we should be going. So you see opportunities, dangers, risk, and all the potential, whatever's coming in your way. Okay, so elevate yourself, elevate your perspective. So how do you expand your global and strategic thinking ability? And to be able to see the big picture and develop business acumen is, first of all, you got to get to know, what does your company do? And in terms of how does your company operate at every level globally? If you don't know, if you ask you a question, I work for my company for 5 years. I've worked here for 3 years. Do I really know how my company operates? Or I only know my little area? Okay? If you don't know, ask, read, be curious. and understand how the company make money and how can you contribute in your role. And also think about your products and services. That do I really know all of them? Do I have a good understanding of what we offer? And know your competition. And ask yourself, do I know why my customers buy from us instead of competitors? So those are the questions that you should be asking yourself as a leader. So that will help you make the right decisions. And get out there and gain some global experiences and exposure. You can't just stay at home and read a book or watch a movie and say, oh, I know what the world looks like. You have to get on the plane. Get out there. Talk to people. Yeah, experience it firsthand, right? Then you know, wow, okay, that's how things work in this part of the world. Right? So get out there and really experience, have a firsthand experience. And you owe yourself for that. And you don't want to keep this great knowledge and experience to yourself. Share the wisdom. Help people think globally as well. I have a pleasure to work with a leader. It's local right here in Singapore. I think he's a great example of somebody that has a strategic thinking and global perspective. And he's a visionary. He's also very inspirational. His name is T.C. Ong. He's the regional head of Hewlett-Packard. So what he did for his people was that a few years ago when the business was down, and the morale was low, and every week they look at the number, and the numbers are going down, down, down. Okay? So people are discouraged, and people feel bad about, gee, you know what, we're not doing well. We're stuck. We don't know what to do. And he started thinking, as a leader, I got to do something. We have to turn this around. So then he brought his people together. And he said, let's build a vision. Let's think about what we want for ourselves. What do we want for our future? What is our future going to look like? So he brought all his country managers together. And this team jointly together think about what is this picture. They actually get the paper out and get the markers out, and they start drawing. So then they end up drawing this bridge, this picture of the bridge. And they say, that's the symbolic metaphor for us, that we are building a bridge. Okay? And then they actually went online, they searched all the different bridges in the world, and then they found this beautiful bridge that was built outside of Shanghai. It was a big, big bridge that was beautiful, that was built across the ocean. So then they draw this picture, and they started thinking about the metaphor. What does that have to do with our business? How can we change our belief that we can do this? So then they started talking about, in order to build this bridge, we have to do it step by step, inch by inch. So we need teamwork. You're going to draw up the blueprint. You're going to bring in the materials. You're going to get the engineers. We're going to get the workers to do this. And then we're all going to be working together on this. Right? And then they started thinking about, what does the future look like? And then what are some of the things we need to do to get support from outside to help us get there? And what are some of the internal support we need? So then they use this bridge metaphor to build this whole blueprint and the roadmap for themselves. And then every week, they will use the Post-it notes. They have the whole wall with the bridge. And they have this Post-it note. They continue to post their progress. Everything is very, very visual. And people are excited about it. And then when they see something that's continuing to build and getting stronger and bigger, and the number is going up, they're encouraged, and they're excited about it. So he told me this story. He says, you know what? Ever since we started the bridge concept, that we have hit our business target year after year for the last 3 years. It's a big success story. And then he inspired his people, and then he helped his people think strategically, and he inspired them to go bigger. And then his country managers, in turn, took this concept, went back to their country, individual country, and then worked with their people to build their local success as well. So it can be done. completely turn the business around. Number 2 is the leadership style shift. Okay, and that's the second personal development strategy. Now, when we think about working with different cultures, working with global organizations, that it's important to realize that we need to be able to adapt. So going back to the research that we did with the global leaders, we interviewed hundreds of leaders, and I asked them one thing. I said, what do you think is the most important characteristics for global leaders? Okay. And I was surprised to hear this one word that came up over and over again. What do you think it is? What is the word? Confidence? Okay. That's important too. I heard some of that, but that's not quite it. What else? I've heard this word over and over again. It's not about your technical skills. It's not how long you've been working in the industry. It's not about your title, your positions, or your past success. It has everything to do with this word called adaptability. Okay, you have to be able to adapt. So then when it goes back to, then how do you make that leadership style shift? At the heart of that is the cultural agility. You have to be able to adapt and develop cultural agility. And there are 3 components of that. First of all, you have to have some self-awareness. You have to know who you are and what you stand, and also your personal bias and prejudice. And nobody's bias-free. Yeah, we all wear, if you can just imagine, wear this invisible lens, this filter, that everything we see, everything we experience, we go through this filter and we draw conclusions and judgments. Where does that come from? Where would we get this filter? Sorry? Nurture. Nurture? Say more about that. You get your experience in life that defines you. Very good. I'm repeating what he said. That was very profound. Thank you. So it is based on your personal experience, right? The way, how your parent taught you, and the environment you grow up in, the teacher, your neighbors, your friends, and then also your coworkers, your company, your managers, your personal life experience that really help you shape who you are today. But that also created certain bias that you have. So then that created your mindset, your worldview. So it's important to know that. And then to see that, you know, when I look at things, I'm going to reduce some of this bias and take off my filter to see things as they truly are. And secondly is to understand the cultural. So to enhance your cultural knowledge and know as much as you can about the culture that you're working with. And then the third piece is most important, is you combine the first 2 steps, and then you make that style shift, right? And then you depends on the person you're working with, understand yourself, understand the other person, and then think about how can I make some adjustment and adapt to the other person's needs, and then I can work better with that person. I can communicate more effectively, and I can get my point across. So that's the cultural agility. So let me give you a quick example. One of the most critical and most challenging things that people often share with me when it comes to working across cultures is communication. Right? Communication, people miscommunicate all the time, and people misunderstand each other all the time. And so here's the interesting example here. Now, according to research, that there are 2 different communication styles. The first one is, we call that low context communication style, or sometimes we call that direct style. Okay, so this is what it sounds like. When I talk about an idea, and somebody from a low context culture would say, this is my key points, that's my conclusion. 1, 2, 3, boom, 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 right? If I have time, then I will give you some context about the historical background, the thinking process, some data to support it. But if I don't have much time, at least you hear my key points. So I get right to the key points. That's the low context, direct style. The opposite, actually, go back to this. Which country do you think is most, a best representation of this style? Which one? Yes? US, okay. Yeah, true. US is definitely very much low context, right? Okay, so now Switzerland is actually very much the typical example as well. Germany, it's very much low context. Now, the opposite is a high context culture, and we also call that sometimes indirect communication style. So when you have this kind of communication style, when they're expressing in their opinion or ideas, they typically start from the outside. They talk about those are the historical reference. Those are the contexts in the last 10 years. And that's the thinking style. This is my logic, and here's the reason behind it. After 20 minutes, okay, so that's my conclusion. So that is that's the indirect style. That's also the high context style. Which country represents this? China? What else? Japan? Yes? And give me more example on this side. Korea? Okay, yeah? All the Asian. That's it. That's it, right? Most Asian countries communicate this way. And it makes sense. Because I need to tell you, this is my logic. This is my thinking process. Otherwise, how do you know how I come to this conclusion? So to us, it completely makes sense, right? Now, so if you have people from those two different opposite styles coming together, and they're talking to each other, what happens? What happens? So first, let's think about when you have somebody that's in a low context communication style, listening to the high context person talking, what is going through their mind? Come on. Get to the point. What was it? You're wasting my time. Boy, you're really nice, right? You're wasting my time. Come on, get to the point. And then sometimes we get impatient. We just cut him off. It was like, he's going nowhere. Let's just, okay, move on, right? And sometimes you just checked out. People start checking emails, and it was like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I don't have time for this, right? So sometimes you miss the most important point. Okay, now let's look at the opposite way. So when you have somebody that's high context, and listening to somebody who's low context talking, oh, here's my key point. What is going through their mind? What's going through their mind? Why is he so rude? Okay. Yeah. How impatient, how rude. Yeah, well, he doesn't respect me, right? And also, you think that you tell me those conclusions. Where does that come from, right?
I think it's lacking not trusting the outcomes that they're presenting.
Exactly. I don't trust your conclusion. Did you just throw that at me? Just you dream about that last night, and where does that come from? Where is it based? Okay, so then sometimes they don't trust what you're saying. So you can see that this kind of miscommunication can occur at any time. And it's happening all the time when I work with leaders around the world that they tell me how frustrated they are, and they're just not on the same page. Okay, so to keep in mind that you need to know the other culture, the person that you're working with, what is their style? What do you have to do to adapt to different styles? So then you can actually get your point across. Okay, so now, the third point is building partnership. Building partnership is so critical that my clients, especially Asian leaders, they tell me, Maya, I work so hard, and I have done a good job. I reach all of my target, and my performance is great, but nobody seems to notice. And I don't get any I haven't gotten promotion for years, and I don't feel like people recognize my contribution. I'm frustrated. I'm also disappointed. And then they don't realize that. Often we say it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? Well, if it comes to working globally, that's not enough. What do you have to do? It's not what you know, it's not who you know. It's who know of you. That really matters. Okay. So think about it in your personal example. Do you have people in your life that are willing to advocate for you, that are willing to recommend you for something? And when there is an opportunity, he or she is willing to say, you know what, call John, call Mary. I know they're good. Throw your name in the hat and say, give this person a chance. Okay? And they're willing to take a risk to promote you. They want you to shine. They want you to become a star. Do you have people like that? And of course, it takes some effort to really let the other person know who you are and what you're capable of doing. So do you have people like that? If the answer is no or maybe, what do you have to do to build stronger partnership with individuals that have influence? So treat others as partners and not competitors. And that's how you build true partnership. Okay? You collaborate. You make it win-win. It's not about, I take it all. I win, you lose. There's no more partnership. You also have to be able to build partnership internally and externally. So I have leaders who are extremely helpful in terms of building internal and external partnerships and to be able to work across different functions and also build relationships with external stakeholders like customers, like suppliers, like business partners, and then to really be strategic about it. Okay, I have lots of examples. In Hong Kong, I have a client, her name is Welsie Wang. She is the VP of operations. And I've been her coach for a year, and she was promoted to this position, and from a more internal position running an operation team to now she has to actually working with people outside of the organization. It's a global role. So then she thought, you know what, I don't know anybody. How am I going to build that partnership? And so we start mapping it out. What are some things that she needs to do to start building that relationship and partnership? So then she asked her boss's boss, introduce me to those people, those key individuals I need to know. And then she get out there with them, meet with them, and then she carry on to build that relationship. Okay, she made the effort to reach out. She also continuously working with government officials, landlords. She's in a retail business. It's a global retail business and DFS. It's a duty-free shops. So you know she's based in Macau, and her division after a year become a #1 profit center because she made such a strong effort to build partnership, and then has a very supportive and powerful network that help her build her business. Okay, so to be mindful and then to be intentional and proactive to build that kind of partnership. So I'd like you to think about, in terms of your own situation, what is one unique attribute and skill that makes you a valuable member of somebody else's global network? Why do people want to include you in their network? What do you have to contribute? If there was one thing you would like leadership to know about you, what would it be? You don't want to be like a diamond that's hidden in the sand. So what do you need to highlight so people know this is what you're good at? You're absolutely the best in doing this. What do you want them to know about you? Have you connected in a meaningful way with leaders outside of APAC? If so, how are you building and leveraging those connections? So those are some of the questions I'd like you to reflect on and ponder on and think about how well am I doing in those things. Okay, so to recap, those are the 3 strategies: global strategic thinking, leadership style shift, building partnership are the personal development strategies. So let's talk about organizational strategy. What can the organization do to develop the global talent? Okay, so according to research that executives learn best from assignments, hands-on assignments, projects that are actually doing it and then they learn from doing it. 70% is from that. 20% is from coaching, mentoring, relationships. Okay? They get feedback, and they understand how they're being perceived, and then they can learn from it. 10% is from training programs. So knowing this, what can organization do to develop your global talents? I have 3 strategies. Number 1 is career path. Okay. It is the manager's responsibility to develop your people. Not necessarily the HR's responsibility, the manager's responsibility. So you have to have conversation with your people about their career path, what they aspire to do. Where do you want to be 5, 10 years from now? What is your passion? Right? Have a discussion around that. I work with a company called CGG, and it's a French company, and they're in a very interesting business. They call imaging business. It's a very highly technical business that what they do is everybody working in the company, about 90% of them all have PhDs. Some of them have 2 PhDs. What they do is they drill, they take pictures on the bottom of the ocean. And then they took picture and they analyze all the imaging, the sound, the pictures, and then they use all of those information to help companies, their clients, mostly oil and gas, to detect where to drill. Okay, so that's one of their core business. And they take developing people seriously. And I work with their Houston division for several years. What they do is that they make it mandatory for their managers to have a career conversation with their employees every quarter. And they call this Take 15. So 15 means 15 minutes. So it's not going to take a lot of your time. But the managers sit down with their employee for 15 minutes. Once a quarter, discuss what is their career path. Okay? Listen to it, and then help them achieve it. Or give them feedback to say what they're missing, what they have to do to get there. So career path is the number 1 reason that mid-level executives quit their jobs in Asia. Number 1 is lack of career path. Number 2 is lack of learning development opportunities. Okay. And then secondly, mobility. So we talk about helping leaders gain firsthand experiences working in global projects. My client, Lenovo, the learning executive that has shared with me what they have seen as best practices. They talk about the strategy. I thought it was so easy to remember. I'd like to share with you. It's called 2 by 2 by 2. Okay, so what are those numbers mean? What does that mean? So the first 2 is that to develop global leaders, you need to get a minimum of 2 different functional experiences. So if they have been working in sales, move them to marketing. So give them exposure to work in different departments, different functions. That's the first 2. The second 2 is to get them to expose to different cultures. So in addition to their home country, move them out of there and then go to a different culture. So if you're based in Singapore, go to India, go to United States, go to Australia, have a different cultural experience, minimum 3 months, sometimes can be 2-3 years. So have different cultural experience, minimum of 2. And the third 2 is to have the field experience as well as the headquarter experience. So you know there's a very different perspective and priorities. You have a very different perspective for the leader. So mobility is so critical to help leaders gain firsthand experiences. But that has to be well planned out. Okay, so then the leader is learning in a systematic way, and then they continue to move in their career path, and then they'll be able to then bring the learning back to their job when they continue to move in their journey. And last thing is, of course, providing learning opportunities such as coaching, mentoring, and training. So those are some of the key strategies that I have seen over the years that works well when organization can help to develop your global talent. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and take some questions. I'd like to encourage questions, and so I'm going to give you some incentive. This is the book, Global Leadership, my book, Global Leadership, The Next Generation. The first person to ask the question gets this book, and I signed it also. Wow, that hand was up. First, please.
Check. Hi, I'm Ricky from Mercury. It was an interesting sharing. I like you to elaborate more because on the global thinking part, which is I see the most difficult part for leaders to develop. Imagine you have a leader who is 40, 45 years old, just promoted to be a C-level person. He has not been exposed to what is global thinking at all, okay? Because he has been given a country manager role for all these years, and now he is in the regional level or even like a global level. What can he or she do quickly for the first 100 days in his role in order for him to be successful? All right. I just want to pick your mind a little bit more and your experience more on what would you recommend to someone who comes from that kind of profile, regardless of industry. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. It's a good question. And first of all, of course, we're talking about successful onboarding, right? When these are to transition from a more of a local role to a global role. And what are some of the things? And it's so critical to help set this person up for success. So then I would recommend that to sit down with the leader to really clearly understand what are some of the key skill gaps the person has. And then identify the key individuals for this person to talk to, okay? And then he needs to learn. And so they're going through this very steep learning curve. He has to learn a lot of things that he didn't know before. And so the first thing is to enhance his knowledge. Talk to people and ask questions, and then really have a good understanding of what is it that I'm dealing with and what gap do I have. So then first is identify the gaps. Secondly is to get them to start talking to people, the key people that can help him see a different perspective. And then once they identify some of the skill gaps, and then start thinking about what are some of the key things to help this person with early wins. So identify projects, identify areas that systematically the person can do it step by step. And then get a mentor, someone that in the organization that has a similar experience and is more senior to help guide this person. So I would say the first 100 days is very crucial. But don't expect the person can, like take a pill and then I magically become a global leader. It's a learning journey. So you have to help this person plan this out so that they can be successful step by step. So I would say that, read the first 90 days. That's a good book. Those are listed about 10 different things that you can implement. But it has to be planned out. It's not ad hoc. It's not random. It has to be systematic. Okay. You can come and get the book afterwards. Okay, right now it's good. Maybe I'll take one more question. Do we have time?
I'm sorry,
should we
that was the
we're
only
done.
one we had time
Okay.
for.
I will be around, so please feel free to ask me questions during the break as well. So I will present you with the book. Please, yeah. Thank you. Oh, I think they want to take a picture of it. Thank you. Thank you.